to Beyond the Boardroom, the official podcast for ASMi Business School, where we bring to you unfiltered conversations with leaders, innovators, and game changers. I am Srijita Bhattacharya, and with me today we have our co-host Shrishti Ghosh.
That's right. And with every episode, we dive into different industry trends, leadership insights, and skills that defines the success. So today's topic is very crucial for most of us, and that is the future of business education.
And today we could not be more excited to bring our first guest, that is Professor Kaustav Majumdar. Sir has been our chief mentor for ASMi Business School. Sir also has a first-hand experience on seeing how the education line and the industry has been evolving. Sir, welcome to our
Thank you
podcast.
for having me here. Thank you so much.
Sir, some argue that business schools are still stuck in the past, like teaching outdated theories while the industries moves forward. Do you think that business education has truly adapted to the demands of the modern world, or is it still just chasing trends without the real substance?
I think it's a brilliant first question. I personally believe business schools stuck in time. We are not even chasing trends. We are way beyond where we need to be, way behind where we need to be. And that's not just a phenomena here in our country. I would argue that is the case with most institutions across the world. But definitely in our country, we seem to be lagging behind. And what we have also seen over the years, industries, the good business schools seem to be doing very well, but industry seems to be having very, very profound opinions now that MBA students do not necessarily add value to their businesses, which have been reflecting, which are now getting reflected in the way placements are happening all over the world, definitely in India.
So, sir, AI and automation has been changing everything from healthcare to finance. But some educators say that it is just a fancy buzzword in the business world. What's your take on it?
Some years back, in another very well-known institution where I've had the pleasure of serving, called me. This was just after ChatGPT was formally launched to the world. Of course, people had been working with generative AI much longer, much before that. So this very well-known institution, some of my colleagues over there called me up and said, I'm like the resident tech guy in that college. And they wanted me to give them some suggestions how they can ban ChatGPT in their college. And I laughed. And now, eventually, after a couple of years, they're all laughing. ChatGPT is not a fad. Gemini is not a fad. Copilot is not a fad. Generative AI is not a fad. It's a game changer. It's a paradigm shift. The way we look at technology today is not going to be the way we look at technology tomorrow. This paradigm shift is as big, according to me, as it was when internet became omnipresent, which was maybe say about 25 odd years back, maybe 30 years back. When internet became omnipresent, a lot of people felt that it's not going to be that big a difference, but we know what it did to us. With the advent of internet, you had social media, you had so many other things that came up. Exactly the same way, what we are seeing right now is the start of the curve. Generative AI, what you're seeing now is just the beginning. It's going to change everything that we do. It's here to stay, and it's going to become an integral part of our everyday life. That's what I feel.
So, sir, do you think that AI will ultimately replace traditional teaching methods altogether?
100%. It will not replace, but it will greatly impact. At the end of the day, if you're teaching a human being, you need human ways of teaching. So it's almost impossible to make the entire thing transactional and procedural, and it should not be so. But I firmly believe AI will have a huge role in the way we teach. One of the biggest things that every educator always wanted to do at the deepest corner of their hearts was to personalize the way we teach so that people can personalize the way they learn, which is not possible. In a typical classroom, in the classes that you are in, you have 60 odd students in a classroom. It's really hard. And different people have different ways of learning. And it's impossible, even if you are attentive, it's very hard to stay attentive throughout a 1 hour session because there are things happening at the back of your mind. So it's very, very difficult to all be at the same level. Now, the point is, you were not at the same level when the class started. In the middle of the class, you're again absolutely not at the same level. And towards the end of the class, you're certainly again not at the same level. But the teacher is the same person and the delivery is the same person. What AI will do is through tools, it will monitor how each one of you will learn. And what will also help the teacher to deliver in a personalized manner to each student. For example, ASMi is part of Techno India. Our parent body has a wonderful initiative called AI. It's called the Techno AI, right? It's an AI billion it's an initiative that we have started. The whole objective is how do we bring AI to each person? And that's what's going to do to education as well. So the single largest thing is that it's going to be an agent in your hand, a powerful tool in your hand, so that you learn in your way, which is going to be different from hers. And as a teacher, it's going to be in my hand. I will be able to deliver differently to different people, catering to different people's, different students' learning needs. I hope that kind of answered.
It
Yes.
definitely did.
So, adding to this, I want to ask you that our attention span has really decreased. So, do you think bringing AI into this education system will also hamper the research part that we used to do earlier, reading the books and maybe even searching on Google, which AI does is summarize the whole thing? What's your take on that?
I think this is an excellent question. First and foremost, I know your attention span has reduced because I would know that very well. But I would also like to point out, it's not just your attention span has reduced. Everybody's attention span has reduced. My attention span has reduced. I struggle to read a book nowadays. I've read books all my life. I think it's fluffy science, but they say that goldfish has about 8 seconds of attention span. So human beings were slightly more than that. Now we are slightly below. Keeping goldfish analogy aside, bottom line is that we are now all suffering from some degree of attention disorder. It's increasing, our minds racing all the time. Will AI impact this? I am sure it will. I'm not sure how it will. But the point that you made over there in your question is, I think is a great question. If I am going to think about something using my faculties, or will I just, if I have a document, I'll just put it into the prompt and ask them to summarize it. So I will take shortcuts. I think we are more prone to taking shortcut. But I'll give you a similar example as I did with the earlier question of yours regarding internet. When internet first came, everybody said that we are not going to go to libraries anymore. And the internet became the world's largest library, right? So whatever you needed to know, you asked Google, for example, and Google would find it for you. And instead of reading 30 books, Google will give you ideally maybe 5 papers to go through and then construct your answer. It's a different matter. Google will possibly give you, instead of 30 books, now 30,000 books. So that's where ChatGPT and Copilot and all these things is similar. So yes, you may not do that research by yourself. You may go to the prompt, to the generative AI, ask what you want to find out, and it will do your job. Only difference is, now it's going to be a function of what kind of questions you ask, right? Which we have discussed this in classes before, it's called prompt engineering, right? So you're going to, the way you ask the questions, the way you prompt, it contextualizes, it sharpens your query. And your generative AI chatbot goes and finds for you. So what essentially it does, yes, it reduces your research, but if you don't ask the right questions, it will not be able to help you. If you ask the right questions, it gives you better information faster. Yes, your sheer manual effort reduces, but it allows you more free time to take in the information and think about it, right? And then you sort of get wherever you want to get to faster. That's the idea. But I think in the next 6 months to a year, we will have a better understanding of how these things are panning out.
So we often hear that degrees alone aren't enough anymore. And some critics even say that academia is becoming a mere certification factory instead of a place for genuine learning. So what's your take on how should business schools address this issue?
These are tough questions. I would tend to agree with some of those critics. I personally grudgingly will accept that most academic institutions in our country, maybe all over the world, a large number of them are certifying bodies. And learning seems to be have taken a backseat. It's not even a secondary priority; it's possibly a tertiary priority or further down. If you look at it, academia has not really changed in the last, say, 200 years. Everything else has changed, but academia has not changed. And a lot of people will argue that it's time that it changes now. It's not entirely true that it's not changed at all. Of course, it has gone through significant changes with the advent of internet, and then when social media came in, etc. And I think that's where, in the last few years, and COVID, I think, played a huge role, because digitalization became far more important. LMSs have become far more important. So I think going forward, academia is bound to change further. What that essentially does is that it puts the onus back on you and me both. I need to do a better job as a teacher. I need to now personalize, which I always wanted to do, but I could never do. Now I will have the tools to do so. It's going to be additional, extra effort and work from my end. But every good teacher will wholeheartedly accept it, because that's why we came into the profession to begin with. But it also puts an onus on you, because when you have thousands of business schools just in our country, I suppose Calcutta as a city has almost 100 business schools. If you have 100 business schools over here, and if everybody is giving an MBA out, and then come placement time when you're looking for a job, just the fact that you have an MBA is not going to be sufficient to get a job. People would want to know. So the certificate is important, but it's not going to get you a job. People would want to know, what do you really know? How much do you know? People would want to know, what kind of a person are you? These things were important in the past. They will continue to be important in the future as well. So I think, yes, in many ways, I'm going to make a slightly sexist comment over here. Don't take it otherwise. With the advent of technology, men from boys will be separated, or women from girls will be separated. What that essentially means that going forward, technology is going to help you decide what's a better college, me decide who's a better student, and industry to decide where I'm going to get my next generation leaders from. I hope that answers the question in some way.
Yeah, it did.
It did. So also adding to this, I want to ask you, we have been seeing this huge growth in skill-based jobs more than degree-based jobs. And if that's true, first of all, what's the take on that? And if that's true, then where is the traditional business school going?
Excellent. You guys have done superb research on getting your questions right. And I don't have very good answers for all your questions, as I can see. It was always skill-based. When you hire somebody, you hire that person keeping in mind that the person is going to do something for you. And you have a skill at the back of your mind that you seek in that person. The fact that you know or do not know the skill comes through learning, and that to prove that the learning has happened, you have a degree, right? So it was always the interplay between skill and degree was always there. But increasingly, it's becoming more and more skill-based, and I have a take on that. Your parents would be a similar generation as mine, would have typically worked in companies for 10, 15 years, 20 years. Your grandparents, as in my parents, would have gone into a company and worked there all their lives. 35, 40 years of their existence in one company. And if I ask you people, you're in your early 20s, can you imagine working in a company all your life? Right. So the way I see it is you're going to keep changing. And if you're going to keep changing, companies will need to keep changing as well. So it's no longer as much as the person in the organization it's more that I have a job to be done. Who's going to come and do it? And those skills will also change. Another interesting way of looking at it is we're all the remnants of the industrial economy, where somebody would learn something, say a welder would or somebody working on a lathe machine will work in a certain manner and then keep on doing it for 30 years, right? Exactly the same thing, right? That's changing. With the advent of technology, no job is going to be the same over a period of time. So which means even if you know a skill, it's not sufficient for you to feel it's going to feed you for the rest of your life. And if I have a skill requirement today, I know very soon that skill is going to be redundant, or I would need somebody with better skills. Do not forget the final point. business is always stressed. At the end of the day, every business is also trying to make money. So if I'm running a business and I'm making X amount of money, my competition is going to come and try and see if they can offer the same service cheaper. What that essentially means, I will have to also compete at some point in time. Unless I can add value, I will have to compete. Which means if I'm paying you 100 rupees for a job today, and next year you want 110, and the third year you want 120, and it goes on like that. I'm selling it at 200 rupees. My profitability is reducing. At some point in time, I would want to get somebody cheaper. So it's not just skill, it's, so I would want, it's a skill, it's the interplay of skill, degree, time, and money, right? So long story short, business schools need to be mindful about this. We need to be able to give you skills that will find you a job today, but business schools have another role to play. Business schools should be able to give you the basis to acquire new skills. My primary aim would be to strengthen you in such a manner that you will be able to identify how the trends are changing in the industry. So that 3-4 years down the line, if you want to learn something new, you have the basis to learn them. It's not just I give you a skill for today. I give you a basis to acquire new skills for tomorrow. Is that good?
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
I personally believe that change is really important for growth.
Yes,
mainly.
absolutely. And it's important for you. It's important for me. It's actually more important for you because most of my life is now behind me. I have time ahead of me. I hope I'm going to live for some more time. But most of your life is ahead of you. And you are going through this massive paradigm shift right now. I actually went through a similar paradigm shift when internet became popular, when I was an engineering student in the early to mid 90s. At that point in time, what was interesting for us, for me, is that I remember I got an email ID during my computer science years. It was a Hotmail email ID. I was thrilled. And I would have narrated this in the class to you guys, perhaps. I was thrilled that I have this email ID. Because my other email ID from the university was a string of numbers. It did not sound personal at all. But the Hotmail ID was more personal. And I wanted to send emails to people I care about. And I realized nobody had email. Right? So that's the time I grew up, with similar age as you guys are in now. And then I saw how everything changed. Later, a couple of years later, I remember my father would send an email out, and he's an extremely smart man. He went to one of the best colleges in the country, IIT Kharagpur. He's been global leaders of big businesses. But when email first came to him, it took him by surprise because he was the same age as possibly I am now. And I remember he would fax those emails because he wasn't sure that the email has gone. Now, if you look at all of that, it sounds funny now because everybody has an email. Everybody, right? In the last 25 years, I saw how it changed. You are now in this day and age of artificial intelligence. By the time you are my age, can you imagine what kind of changes the world will go through? 2025, so I'm talking 25 years back, 2000, 2050, when you're around about my age, the world will be totally different. So change is constant, as we know, but now the change will be far more rapid, I think.